right, so good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another exciting broadcast with us here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For many of our classes, you're joining us for the very first time ever, in which case, welcome to the show. We are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. Everything we do goes live to YouTube and stays there forever. So if you want to watch this broadcast in 3 weeks or 3 years down the road, you can go to our YouTube channel and do just that. I'm really excited too because this marks the beginning of our epic Peak Discovery series in conjunction with the Mountain Parks in Parks Canada yet again. Now, many of our classes today are joining from across Alberta, so maybe you've had the chance to visit one of these parks in person or all of them in person, in which case, lucky you. The mountain parks are not just some of the most beautiful places in Canada, they're some of the most beautiful places on planet Earth, and we are so excited again to have a 20-part broadcast series in conjunction with those amazing places yet again this year. So check out the webpage below, sign up for a whole bunch, lots of great learning opportunities on the go in the months to come. Today too, we are going to have a Kahoot quiz together. So between our talk and Q&A portions, we're going to have a 4 quick question quiz, test your understanding, have a little bit of fun. I'll bring up that game pin before we go live with it again, but just an extra way to keep it extra engaging and interactive today. Now today, I am so pleased to welcome back Shannon. She is joining us from Waterton Lakes, one of the most beautiful places in the world, to talk about birds of the mountain parks. We're going to dive in with this incredible group of creatures. We were talking about them yesterday in a dinosaur program because birds are dinosaurs, and that is as amazing to me now as it was when I first learned it. And Shannon's going to walk us through some of the really cool adaptations and specifically some of the species that live in her incredible park. So without further ado, Shannon, I don't want to steal any more of your thunder. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and take us away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon. I work in Waterton Lakes National Park. And since there are so many Albertans, I may have even seen some of you this summer. And welcome to this online bird program. You're looking at a picture here of Waterton at the front in our Maskinage wetland area and a whole bunch of birds. Looks like the spring as they're all coming back here to the park. It's the fall now, and so we have a lot of birds leaving. But before we get started, I would like to start the presentation by acknowledging that I am presenting from the traditional territories of the Siksika-Sadapi, which is the Blackfoot Confederacy, and that consists of the Kainai, Pagani, Siksika, and Amskipagani. And Waterton Lakes also falls in Treaty 7 territory, which includes Tsuut'ina Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, made up of Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney bands. And the Ktunaxa Nation also claim Waterton as within their territory, and Métis Nation Region 3 claim Waterton as part of their homeland. But the land and waters of Waterton here have been used for a millennia, that's 10,000 years, by Indigenous people for sustenance, ceremony, trade, and travel. And we do thank them for that stewardship and for sharing this land with us. And with that, let's get started. We're going to be learning all about birds today and specifically focusing on what makes birds really unique and the adaptations they have. And you are looking at a Clark's nutcracker. And that Clark's nutcracker has a really strong beak that is one of the only things that can open the cones of the white bark pine and get the seeds out. And that is a cool bird we have here in the park. Near the end, we're going to go through a few ways that you can go out birding and see birds yourself, and you'll have some knowledge under your belt so you can get out and explore and learn more here. So I would invite you all to close your eyes for a moment and picture a bird that you've seen recently, and just think of that bird in your head. What made that bird special? Why did you notice it? What features maybe did it have that set it apart from other birds you might have seen? And you can open your eyes. I pick this picture here because I remember these birds as they're taking advantage of some flooding to come into maybe where they wouldn't normally be. Keep the thoughts of your bird in your mind and add to your knowledge so you can maybe understand your bird a little bit better. And just like these birds here, let's dive in. So let's start. What makes a bird a bird? Well, some basic bird anatomy starting from the inside out. There's a couple of features that birds and humans share. Birds and humans are both vertebrates, meaning we have backbones and we stand on 2 legs. But what's super unique about bird bones is that their bones are hollow. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Also, similar to humans, birds have 4 chambered hearts, and they are warm-blooded. and warm-blooded, which means that they can keep their body temperature the same despite changes to the temperature in their environment. Now, differences between birds and humans. Now we're ready for this one. Birds lay eggs instead of giving birth to live young. They have ear holes instead of ears. But the most different and identifiable characteristic of birds is that they have feathers and wings. So that's the basics of our birds in a nutshell, or should I say eggshell? But let's take a closer look into some of these unique features and we can really start to understand just how amazing they are. Let's start with those defining features of the wings and the feathers. So all birds have wings, even if they don't use them for flying. But each species will have a slightly different shape and style of wing. For example, eagles will have big, wide wings for soaring. Hummingbirds have small, fast wings for hovering. And American dippers can use their wings for steering underwater. And as we go through the presentation, you're going to notice that different species of birds will have variations of similar structures that help them meet their very specific lifestyles and needs. And we call these changes these adaptations. If we go inside of the bird's wings and bodies, as I promised, we're going to talk about birds' bones and why they're special. They're called pneumatized, which means having air-filled cavities, and we could refer to them as hollow. When we compare a bird's bone to a human bone, we can see human bones are solid and filled with bone marrow, and bird bones have large air pockets. But what do you think hollow bones are used for? Jesse, maybe we can go to the chat or ask the classrooms, what do hollow bones do for a bird?
Ooh, let's see. Any YouTubers? We got a whole bunch of YouTube class. If you guys want to share in the chat there, great. Miss Bartlett and Mr. Evans class, if you want to unmute your mics when you're in the background, we can't hear you anyway, but you can unmute them and come on in and answer this if you'd like. Hollow bones, Miss Bartlett's class, what do they do for the birds?
It makes them lighter.
Makes them lighter. First answer. I like that one. That's a very right on the ball.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And that is part of what they do. But they also do something else.
Ooh, Mr. Evans class, do you guys want to chime in? Oh, or unless we're showing it.
I skipped it. I'm sorry. I skipped
it. That's okay.
it.
No, we've got other questions. We'll come to them soon.
Yeah, I have more opportunities to participate. Birds have a very efficient respiratory system, and that is their breathing system. They have extra air sacs on top of their lungs that help circulate oxygen through their bodies into their hollow bones. And the air sacs allow for the lungs to constantly be supplied with oxygen. And that's really important for their bodies while they are flying. So they get constant oxygen going through their bodies, going in and out of their bones, which is pretty neat. So now let's go back to the outside of the bird and look at what's covering those wings and the rest of the body, and that is feathers. Birds are the only creatures in the world that grow feathers, and feathers come in different shapes, sizes, and colors to perform a variety of functions. So I'm going to put a picture of a bird up on the screen, and as I promised, we have another chance to participate. Everyone try and guess what's the function of the feathers for the bird in the photo. Here's the first one.
All right, Mr. Evans class, if you guys want to unmute your mic, Miss Bartlett, again, you guys can keep your mics unmuted, I promise. What do we think? Function of the feathers? Flying. Easy. That's the most common thing for birds. I think that might be right, Shannon.
That's right. Birds have specific flight feathers on their wings and tails that are strong and light and allow them to propel themselves so they can maneuver through the air. And feathers are also made of keratin, which is the same material as our fingernails and our hair. It allows the feathers to be really lightweight and durable. So here's the next one. What are these feathers doing?
Ooh, Miss Bartlett's class, we're going to bring you guys in. YouTubers, don't be shy as well. Miss Bartlett's crew.
Swimming.
Swimming. Easy, Shannon. It's a duck. It's swimming, of course. Come on.
It is swimming, and what is good for these feathers is that they are waterproof. This is where the saying slides like water off a duck's back comes from, because birds have a special preen gland, and they use their beaks to get oil from the gland, and they rub the oil over their feathers, and that makes them waterproof. Preening also cleans and moisturizes their feathers, and it keeps them really strong and flexible. All right, next bird. What are these feathers doing?
Ooh, that's a very fluffy bird, Shannon. That's like the fluffiest bird I think I've ever seen. Mr. Evans' class, if you guys want to chime in, unmute. Tell me all about it. Shannon, there's like, we can just leave the kids to teach this broadcast. I think they're just killing it so far.
Yeah, it must be September. Everyone's ready to learn and they're ready to go. You're right. This bird is staying warm because feathers are the greatest insulating structure out of all the animals we know, and even more so than thick blubber or fur. Birds can use their feathers to trap air next to their body for insulation, and then rearrange their feathers to trap more or less air to adjust their body temperature in comparison to the environment around them. All right. What about this guy? What are these feathers being used for?
Miss Bartlett's class, coming back to you. You guys are so on the ball. I love it.
Protection. They said protection.
Protection. Okay. I like that there was a little bit of a hesitation on that one. This is a bit of an odd one. I like it. Tell us more about it, Shannon.
Yeah, so these bright colors are often for attraction or mating. So mostly male birds are known for having different, more colorful plumage during the breeding season, and that's to help attract a mate. And some of these males, like this guy here, put on quite the show for the ladies. Here's our last one. What's the feathers doing for this bird?
Ooh, all right. Mr. Evans' class. Oh, all the hands up. What are we Camouflage. Oh,
camouflage. That's correct. The patterning and colors of the body can give birds this self-defense mechanism. This helps keep them safe from predators and helps them blend into the environment. Now, here is a camouflage bonus round. Everyone, just look at these three pictures, and I promise you there is a bird in each of them. So take a second and see. Can you find the bird?
So I can find the one, I think, on the right. I think I see its eyes. On the left, no. There's no bird there. That's just a tree. You're kidding with us, Shannon. And then in the middle, I don't know. It looks like a pile of leaves as well. Do you guys have any thoughts? What do we think? Classes?
Let's see. We can start to reveal them here. There's that bird.
Cool.
There's that second bird in the leaves. And correct, there are two sets of eyes in the snow there. Oh, I wonder if anyone had luck finding all of the birds. That's pretty tricky. Okay, let's go down and start talking about feet. So birds' feet are covered with thick, heavily scaled skin, and it strengthens the foot, helping to prevent wear and tear that comes with walking around and perching. And the feet and toes are mostly tough tendons and bones, and they don't have many nerves or blood vessels or even muscles. And that allows them to perch on cold metal or to walk on ice in really low temperatures. But what's even more amazing is that within that bird's foot, blood vessels that are there are located really close together. This allows for warm blood flowing from the bird's body to transfer some of its heat to the cold blood that's just gone through the foot. And this is called countercurrent heat exchange. But what's important to remember is it just helps maintaining the bird's core body temperature. Now, looking at these background photos, we can see that birds have different feet for different uses. Their feet have adaptations as well. So, another guessing game. Let's try and guess what type of feet some common birds have and why. All right, first up is our osprey. What type of feet does an osprey have?
I just want to say, too, it's been a while since I've seen an osprey. What a beautiful bird. They're the best. Miss Bartlett's class, what does the osprey foot for?
Talons.
That's right. Birds of prey have really strong, large talons as nails, and they're perfect for hunting. You can see on the osprey's foot that they have two toes pointing forward and two pointing backward, and that's ideal for snatching and holding on to prey. Now here we've got a mallard duck. I think a lot of people know what kind of feet they have.
But we'll bring him in just in case. Mr. Evans' class, duck feet. For what? Paddling, I think. Oh, they're muted.
Swimming.
You know ducks. We're like duck fans here.
That's right. So waterfowl, and that is a bird that lives in the water, can have webbed feet. And they have skin between their toes that turn them into paddles. That's perfect for swimming and propelling them through the water. So here we have a golden-crowned kinglet. Any guesses what their feet are used for?
Can I just say, just by complete fluke, that we actually had a live golden-crowned kinglet and a live songbird banding like 2 days ago, and it was amazing. So if you want to check that out, it's on our YouTube channel. They're such a pretty bird. Miss Bartlett's class, what do you guys think?
I'm on the tree. I don't know.
Hanging out in the tree, perching, yes. Sounds great.
That's correct. They have small feet that have a special locking mechanism for perching. So when a bird like this lands, tendons from the leg tighten and lock the foot in that position around the branch. And this is an involuntary reflex. That means the bird doesn't even have to think about it to do it. And so they can just be sleeping on the branch and their feet will just stay locked like that. So that was great work on feet, folks. So let's go back up on the bird and talk about beaks and bills. In general, what do they do? Well, they're used for eating. And most birds use their beaks like we would use kitchen utensils. Sticking with our theme of the varieties of the same structure and those adaptations, let's play a matching game. Let's look at these bird beaks and figure out which one we think is best suited for food. And for this one, we'll just talk amongst ourselves in our classrooms. So here are 4 different bird species. They all have really different beaks. Now look at the menu options I just put on the page and try to match what food item each bird might choose. Let's start with this rose-breasted grosbeak. If you said they'd choose a seed, you're correct. Now, what would this golden eagle eat? If you said this snowshoe hare, that's right. Now, what about the rufous hummingbird? Yep, that delicious looking flower sure matches them. And last but not least, the flycatcher is going to choose a wasp. Excellent job, I'm sure, everyone. Now let's see this eating in action. As you can see, the rose-breasted grosbeak has a short, thick, cone-shaped beak, and it's strong for cracking open nuts and seeds. The golden eagle has a large, hooked, sharp beak, and that's for tearing apart the flesh of the prey. And the rufous hummingbird has a long, narrow beak to allow it to get into the center of flowers and to drink the nectar. And the flycatcher has a hook on the end of its beak, and that helps it catch insects. And they also have bristles by their beak, and that helps them understand the speed and orientation in the air when they're flying around trying to catch their food. So we'll wrap up the adaptations today, which what I think is the best for last. And we're going to talk about birds' eyes and their amazing sense of vision. Birds have the largest eyes in proportion to their body than most other animals. The common ostrich has the largest eye of any land animal. It's 5 times larger than the human eye and even bigger than an elephant's eye. And the ostrich's eye is even bigger than its own brain. But what do these big eyes do for a bird? Well, a bigger eye means a bigger retina and more room for sensory cells to pick up light. So we are going to compare birds' eyes to human eyes. So birds' eyes have about 3 times as many sensory cells as human retinas. So just like a camera with 3 times more pixels, birds will have keener vision than humans do. At the eye doctor, humans have to stand about 3 meters away from the chart, and even there, it can get really hard to read the small letters. But by comparison, an eagle could read a newspaper from across a football field. Another difference is birds have a 3rd eyelid that is called the nictitating membrane. While humans have a top and bottom eyelid that move up and down, birds have those too, but they also have this extra eyelid that opens and closes from left to right. And its job is to protect and clean their eye. And this adaptation is especially useful if a bird is flying or diving into water. Now, a third difference is birds can see in the UV spectrum. So humans are limited to visible light rays, but birds' eyes pick up on more than we can imagine. So let's take a look at what the world is like from this bird's perspective if we include the UV spectrum. So here's a picture of a starling as we would see it with only visible light. But let's put on our bird's eye view glasses. That starling looks completely different. The UV spectrum brings out so many new colors and patterns, and this is likely how starlings see each other, and that would take mating and courtship to a whole different level. What else would they be able to see? Well, let's look at some flowers through our eyes and adding those bird's eye view glasses. Flowers and fruits reflect UV light and make them very bright, whereas the green leaves will absorb the UV light and become muted. This allows those flowers and fruits to stick out to the bird, and the birds can find them more easily in dense vegetation. And here's a few other examples to compare what human vision and bird vision looks like. It's truly like they see a completely different world than we do. So now that you're all bird experts and we've talked about how much better birds' eyes are than our eyes, what should we as humans do if we are trying to find birds? Looking for birds and trying to identify them can be difficult, but there are tips and tricks for recognizing them in the field. So let's touch on a few birding techniques so you can get out there and train your eagle eyes. You'll want to consider what season it is when you set out birding, because the season will give you an indication of what species of birds you might see. Remember at the beginning of the season, I said it's fall, and so a lot of birds are heading out because many birds migrate to spend parts of the year in different locations for different activities, such as breeding and feeding. If we look at the range map, it can help you rule out whether or not you might see a bird during a different time of the year. For this Canada goose, it spends its summers throughout Canada to breed, and then we can all watch them as they leave to migrate to the United States and Mexico during the winter months. You'll also want to consider a bird's habitat. Knowing what habitats different birds like to live in and what their adaptations are best suited for is very helpful for birding. So think of habitats as like a little mini range map. They can help you narrow in what bird species you might expect to find in the area. For example, you wouldn't really expect to see this duck on a mountain cliffside because ducks tend to like shallow water bodies. Golden eagles like the cliffside. And in the grasslands, you might find this sharp-tailed grouse. And in the forest is where you'll often find an owl. So, time for our last little participation here. When you're looking at the actual bird, you probably know more about them than you think you do just by looking at their size and shape. So we're going to do a quick pop quiz, not for marks. And what I'm going to do is put up a silhouette of a bird. Now that's just the outline of the bird. And we're going to try and guess what type of bird it is. So here is the first bird.
Oh, I think they're going to get this one. This is a pretty great crew. I think these are the best, most right answers we've ever had. Miss Bartlett's clue.
Owl.
Owl. Easy.
Excellent.
Number two.
Easy. Number two.
Mr. Evans' class.
Oh.
Oh.
A crow or a raven, yeah. Next.
Miss Bartlett.
Oh. Swallow.
Swallow.
Oh,
Amazing.
perfect. How about this one?
Mr. Evans.
Goose. How about this one?
Ooh. Bartlett.
Chickadee.
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 It could be a chickadee. It looks like it's probably pretty small. It also could be a sparrow.
Yep. I like that.
And what about this one?
Evans.
Eagle.
Yeah, a gull. And the very last one. Oh, how did that get in there? I don't think we're going to see a rubber ducky in the wild. Excellent job. So just like I said, you know so much more than you think you do about birds, I bet. But once you start to see the colors of the birds after the silhouette, you may realize one size does not fit all. So one of the more difficult skills of birding that can take a lifetime to develop is identifying the bird by its exact species. To do that, it becomes really important to pick up on the field markings. So those are the colors of the bird to help accurately identify it. So different parts of the bird's body are going to have different colors and patterning that make the bird distinctive. So these are some key areas to look at that often have markers to help you identify the species. Here you've got the top of their head, their crest, their eye ring, and their cheek. And when you look at their wings, they'll have different feather groupings that are often all colored together. And so one of the cool things about birds is you can see them anywhere in the world. And so if you were to head out on a walk or even just look out your backyard window, what types of things do you need if you want to start a birding journey? Well, the basic answer, all you need is yourself and your eyes and ears. But a couple of birding 101 tips will help set you up for more success. So the first thing you could get is a pair of binoculars, because binoculars will magnify what you're looking at and help you see the bird in better detail. And then if you have a bird guide, either a book or an app, it can be really helpful for identifying what bird you're looking at. The app on the screen you see is called Merlin, and that's a great one to get started to figure out what birds you find. Make sure you go early in the morning because most birds are active in the morning and sunrise, and your chances of seeing them are much better during that time. And then you want to stay still and quiet. Avoid sudden movements and loud noises. Fast movements and loud sounds can startle birds and cause them to fly away. And then have patience and keep practicing. You have to be patient to wait for birds to come and be patient with yourself because you're learning a new skill and it's going to take a while to become more familiar. But you've got a lot of knowledge already to help you out. And birding can be a really fun activity that you can do on your own or with your friends, but you can contribute to a much bigger community through your birding. eBird has what we call citizen science components to it. Here you can submit your sightings to a worldwide database. And then scientists really do use this data to help trace bird migration, monitor nesting success, and look at changes in bird numbers over time. And this is important to scientists because they can't be everywhere all the time. And for citizens to help them understand where birds are is actually really important information. So while submitting your findings to eBird is something you can always do on your own, you can also join a local volunteer project or bird count in your nearby community or in your school. And these usually happen around Christmas and during the spring migration. So we have one coming up soon. These initiatives are great to help you apply your birding skills as well as meet other birders and learn from them. So thank you all for your attention today. I sure hope you had fun and you learned a lot and you enjoyed learning about birds. And I really hope you're inspired to get out birding yourself. And now we have time for a few questions if anyone has anything they'd like to ask.
Amazing. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for such a deep dive into the amazing world of birds. I will note too, my local public library, and I know a lot of libraries around Canada, the US and beyond, have birding kits that you can take out from the library for free. So if you want some of those apps, brochures, information about local species, binoculars and more, I really encourage you to head to your library. I love them. They're great resources and there's a lot to discover there. Now we are going to do our Kahoot quiz together first. 4 quick questions, test your understanding, have a little bit of fun. A lot of you already are in this, but I've left at the game pin on the bottom. If you're new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And what you win is Shannon and I's everlasting respect. So I think that that's better than any prize, really. She's our bird expert du jour. So if she approves, that's a pretty great sign. We're going to dive in with this. If you're on YouTube, especially, try and get your answers in extra quickly. Sometimes it's a little delayed for our YouTube friends. And I will note that one of these questions is a little tricky. And the answer that you're going to pick is the most correct one. And this speaks to something that we talked about earlier in the broadcast. So I'll leave that up there in the world and explain why it might not be one of our answers here that we discussed earlier. But let's dive in. Here we go. Birds of the mountain parks. Step right up. 3, 2, 1. First question is coming up slowly. What spectrum of light rays can birds see? Street lights, UV lights, neon lights, or rainbows? Now, this crew has been like the most on-the-ball group of classes I've ever seen in my life. So one of these is actually a spectrum, and 3 of them aren't. So that helps a lot. Visible light is what we see in. Microwaves are a kind of light. X-rays are a kind of light. And one of the things up here is another spectrum of light. Most of you got this right. It is ultraviolet. Very, very good. And it enables birds to see what, as Shannon showed, different things than what we can see, which I find very, very cool. Polite crane's in our lead. I think a bird name should win the Kahoot. That would be very suitable. So best of luck to Polite Crane and all our other participants. Birds and mammals have many things in common, but what makes birds different from mammals? The most correct answer, and I'm going to highlight why at the end. They lay eggs, they eat bugs, they have wings and feathers, or they can fly. One, I'm going to hint that we can maybe rule out, because a lot of things eat bugs. The others might be a little trickier. We're going to highlight why in 4 seconds. 20 of you got your answers in. It's really good. So, several other things can fly. Insects can fly. Bats can fly. A lot of you picked eggs, which, Shannon, you did mention. There are 2 mammals that lay eggs. Platypus and echidna lay eggs. Very unusual mammals. They live in Australia. They're very weird. Most mammals don't, but some do. So the thing that most differentiates birds is the fact that they have those wings, and particularly feathers. Feathers are unique to birds. No one has those at all. Polite crane keeps our lead. Polite lemming right behind. We're going to go to question number 3. Here we go. What's the best time of day to see birds? The only question I had to clarify with Shannon before I set up this Kahoot. At night with a flashlight, after lunch when they're most tired. I'm pretty tired after lunch. Big meal. There's no best time. You see them all the time. Or early morning when they're most active. I will hint that maybe it's when the worm is caught. I don't know. I'm just going to throw that out into the world for you kids. 27. Yes, early morning. I know it's painful. I am a person who would sleep until 9 or 10 every single day. So the thought of waking up at 6 really is horrifying to me, but all the animals are out then. So it's very cool. We have a dead heat. I've never seen a dead heat going into our final question ever. That's never happened in 100 Kahoots. Bird bones are, get those answers in quick. Hollow, full of marrow, solid and heavy, or birds don't have bones. This skull is just it's a prop. It's a lie. Polite crane, polite lemming, or will it be an upset? We don't know. We're going to find out together. And then we're going to Mr. Evans' class for our first question after that. Ooh, what do we think? 34 answers. Way to go, everyone. The answer is hollow. Most of you got that right, which sets up our leaderboard. Shannon, I'm on tenterhooks. I'm at the seat of my pants right now, which is very suitable.
It's very exciting.
Excited otter. Ooh, polite crane in second. Oh, does that mean is the lemming our winner? We're going to find out. Yes, an upset at the end. That's crazy. If you are any of those kids or people, let us know who you are at the end. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to head to Mr. Evans' class first. Unmute your mic. Come on in for a question and take us away. YouTubers, share too, please. Hey, guys. Hi. Unmute. A lot of excitement, I think, with a Kahoot in that one. Hello. We want to hear from you guys. We want a question, but you got to unmute your mic first. We can't hear you. Hey.
Okay. I need to get up higher.
Okay, do you have any questions for Shannon?
No.
They nailed it. They did really well in the group, but they have no questions. You taught them so well that they have
Perfect.
no need for extra knowledge on birds whatsoever. All right, Miss Bartlett's class, they got some students at the camera, so we're going to head to them.
I have a question. Are there any universities in Canada in which you can become an ornithologist?
Ooh, great question.
Ooh, what a great question. And I don't know the specific answer to that, to be honest. And I am not an ornithologist. I am just a bird enthusiast here in the park, but I do know you can study this. And so you just kind of have to look it up and find the different programs and the different places that you can study in Canada.
Interesting. So I just did a really quick search in this. So I went to the University of Toronto. I had a lot of colleagues go to Guelph. There was no set ornithology department. It wasn't like a thing that you could take like mammalogy, ornithology. There were specific classes in it and you could specialize in various fields. So what you typically have at a big university like the University of Alberta, McGill, BC, whatever, is there'll be like 70, 80 programs in biology, and you'll focus on all the bird ones. And then in your graduate work, so when you're done your undergraduate degree, your first 4 years in university, if you want to specialize in birds, you'll find bird scientists or ornithologists, and you'll work with them to work on a research project together. That tends to be the way it goes. A really quick search highlights that eBird mentions there are no programs in the US even offering ornithology as a pure major. So it tends to be something that you get in master's and PhD programs. Very good question.
And here in Waterton, we work with a lot of those partners. A lot of researchers come into the park to study birds here that are doing those master's and PhD programs.
Amazing. Miss Bartlett's class, Richmond Hill, we're going to head back to you guys. You have more questions, but take us away, and then Mr. Evans will come back to you in a minute.
Goodbye.
Oh, you're done? Have a wonderful day, you guys. Thank you so much. That was great. You guys are like the most on-the-ball class of one of the two of all time. Mr. Evans, any questions now, or shall we take some from online? What do we think?
You can take some from online.
All right. If you have any, you can have a kid come up to the camera, and I won't kick my mic over, and then we'll be all good to go. Shannon, is there a particular bird species or rare bird that you have a lot of in the park? Like anything, if someone were to come to Waterton Lakes, that they should look for that's particularly cool that you might have seen?
So kind of a neat thing about Waterton is we fall in an interesting wind channel that actually brings a lot of different birds here. And so we have 255-ish species of birds that come into the park regularly. And we have lists that you can get here that will tell you if what you're seeing is rare and sometimes it's unusual. So unusual would mean we don't often find that bird here. And so we do have quite a few rare birds that will come through, and maybe not every year. So it can be like very lucky to see them. But one of the kind of cool things because of this and what is rare in Waterton is that different birds of the same kind, so think like all chickadees coming from all different areas, are going to end up here in the park. And although they all speak the language of chickadee, they have different dialects. So they use different kind of like words than each other. It's kind of like how in Saskatchewan, we might call a hoodie a bunny hug. In Alberta, it would be called a hoodie. It's kind of the same. It's still English, but it's two different words. So that can make studying birds really confusing in Waterton because the birds will have different dialects. And that's a really neat thing about Waterton.
Can we all just agree as Canadians, wherever we're joining from today, that Bunny Hug is the best possible name from a hoodie, and Saskatchewan folks are amazing. So thank you for that. If there's any tuning in, you guys rock. Kudos from here in Newfoundland. Shannon, you talked about researchers being in the park. If someone was a scientist, how do they go about coming into the park to do that work? Do they have to connect with the park staff? Where do they go? Are they at remote field sites? Do you just have them wandering around the parking lots? How does that actually look for any students that might want to be ornithologists?
So the park is public access and people can come in and set up a listening station and go birding on their own and do work on their own. If you want to work with the park on specific projects, especially if you want to go into maybe more areas that might be delicate ecosystems that are a little less accessible to average people, for some of those more rare or endangered birds, then you do have to contact the park and you'll work with our park scientists to get approval for your research project and then go from there.
Fantastic. Shannon, time flies and you're having fun in these broadcasts. I swear they always just whip by for me. Is there any final message you want to share with our kids about birds, about Waterton, anything to lead them off on to get them a little extra inspired before they walk out of class today?
I do, because we have so many Alberta classes in here. I encourage your teachers to look online if you have any field trip availability to come to Waterton, because we do a pretty cool all grades birding program that you can come here with us and do some birding.
Amazing. I honestly, if I could just hop on a plane and come tomorrow, I got broadcast. I wish I could travel the 4,000 kilometers from me to you, but our classes that are close by do take that chance. A lot of our Alberta classes have been to all the mountain parts. It's a really special, life-changing experience. My few times I've ever had the chance to go out west, it's some of the most incredible times I've ever had in Canada and in the world. So hope you get that chance, and let us know if you do, because we'd love to hear about that. Mr. Evans, Miss Bartlett, live with us, YouTube classes, wherever you're joining from, a big thank you to all of you for taking part in our bird program today. I'm going to bring in Mr. Evans' class, still sticking around. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye, everyone. Have a nice day.